Making Mads Take, Episode 3. Competition. All of the questions that we're about to answer come from students at TW, but we know there are like millions of different types of competitions, so we're going to try to help you guys out with dealing with some of them.
Okay, so the first question today is, how do I deal with the feeling of having to compete with older siblings or friends? I think you probably know more about the older sibling thing, so.
Okay, well, I have an older sister, and my older sister is like really good at everything. She's super smart and super good at sports, and she's really nice, and she was really well liked. And then there's me. But I feel like sometimes maybe my parents or my teachers are comparing me to her because she's been through it all, and I feel like she was so good at everything. But you have to kind of take a step back and realize that you're you, and that no one's really comparing you, and that it's kind of unfair to yourself to compare yourself to your siblings because, like I said, you're two completely different people. And like maybe I've seen what she's done and like I want to live up to that, or like she inspires me, but I try not to let myself try to compete with what she's done. And sometimes sibling rivalry is good because you guys push each other to be better people, but then sometimes it can be taken too far, and then someone feels like they're not living up to the expectations that someone else has left for them, and that's when it kind of becomes unhealthy for you to think about it all the time, and for you to always be making comparisons and always feel like you have to be competing.
I know there's some times that your parents may feel like you have to like get up to that level that older sibling got to, or like surpass that. But you have to realize that the path they're going in their lives might be completely different from yours, and just like the levels of like success that like those two paths meet might be different. Like one might seem more, what would you say?
More like superficially successful. Like maybe they're a doctor and you want to be an artist.
Yeah. So there's like different levels, and you just have to understand that like maybe yours doesn't seem as
successful.
But like you got where you need to be.
Yeah, like your path is your path, and ultimately no one like really is comparing you to, and it's not a competition, and no one cares who the better sibling is. And the next part of that question is, how do I deal with feeling like I have to compete with my friends? I feel like when you're around anyone for like a majority of the time, or like if you're always seen with someone, then people are automatically going to try to compare you to.
Yes.
Whether they're saying that you guys are alike, or that you're like two different, or one's smarter than the other, or one does this and one does that. Like I think it's just kind of like a natural reaction for people to try to get others to compete with each other or to compare them.
And like especially like with us, like we're never not together, and I feel like there's always something, like we're always like pit against each other, kind of like I've definitely seen it happen.
Yeah, but like that's something that I feel like you kind of have to deal with like within your friendship. And if it's a solid friendship, then hopefully you guys know that you don't have to compete with each other, and that like real friends are like happy for each other no matter what, and that even if people are trying to compare you to one another, again, you are your own people. Just kidding. And even though you're always together, that doesn't mean that you're always going to do the same things.
Like, I think in that too, like if people are making you feel like in that like maybe you're not up to your other friends' level, like you just need to like sit there and maybe be like, well, maybe they do have that, and like I am like so proud of them for that. Like you don't have to be like salty about them having that success. Like always be proud of like what they accomplish and stuff.
And then maybe like at times where you do feel salty, maybe just take a step back and look at yourself and think about all the things that you do have and that you are capable of, and all of your good qualities, and just kind of be introspective for a minute and just give yourself some self-love.
And everyone has their like own talents and like specialties and stuff. Like you guys aren't gonna have the same skill sets. Yeah. We're different. So the next question is, how do I deal with having an off day of competing? Boy, have I dealt with that a lot.
Oh, me too. I feel like it's hard when you're an athlete, or like maybe if you're like a perfectionist at whatever it is you do. A perfectionist, like whether it's like band, or if you have like mock trial competitions. if you're really passionate about something that you're competing in, then I feel like having an off day really does kind of mess with you mentally.
For sure. And like, I mean, I know like in that moment, it's like, oh my gosh, like I practiced so hard for this, and like why is none of it paying off? But like you have to realize that some days are just gonna be off days.
Right.
Like that doesn't like showcase or define like your talent.
Oh, yeah. And I feel like with individual sports, like I play golf and I did competitive swimming, and those are individual sports. So I know when you're playing sports like that, like how easy it is to like blame yourself and to like really just like keep thinking about it, like, oh my gosh, I did this wrong, I did that wrong. But you kind of have to get out of your own head and, like Megan said, just realize that there are good days and that there are bad days, and that there are going to be a lot of both.
As long as like you tried like
Right.
everything you could do, like you had no control of like how it went.
Right, and that applies to sports too. Like some things you can't control. Like you can't control how the rest of your team plays, and some days you can't even control how you're playing because your body's just doing things and you're like, what's going on? In the end, as dramatic as it sounds, I mean, as long as you've done your best, then I think you should be able to look back and be happy with yourself and just know you tried your hardest and you put in the work, and that your day will come. So the next question is, how do I deal with losing, and then how do I deal with winning?
I've lost a lot. It's a normal thing. It's not new to me. I feel like it kind of has to do with the off day thing too, because you just have to realize that you're gonna have an off day someday, and someone, maybe they're not as talented as you, but they're just gonna have a good day. Like, don't let one like bad day mess up your whole like perspective on whatever you're doing, you know.
And then how to deal with winning. There's kind of like two sides of this, because like obvious, like you should be like happy you won and like proud of yourself,
and like it's okay to like tell people about it.
Yeah.
Like, don't feel like you can't like express your like pride in like what you accomplished, but at the same time
You have to kind of like be humble about it, because that sort of ties into another question, which was about like how do I deal with winning, or like maybe like succeeding in a competition, or being getting better than your friend or than like a sibling did. And when it comes to that, I feel like you need to kind of like be humble about it and kind of like try not to like rub it in their face. I know it's like hard though, because you want to be able to like celebrate it, but I feel like I feel like there are certain ways to go about it.
Maybe like be like conscious of how you're going about it, because like maybe you think you're just like sharing it with a friend, but it could be like, oh, I did like bragging, like, oh, I did this and I did that, and like, what have you done? Like, it like maybe you don't like say it like, I don't know what the word is, just like write it out and say it, but like some people may take it that way, and so you just have to be like aware of how you're putting it out there.
Yeah, and then kind of on the flip side, maybe if like a friend, or maybe you don't even know them, if somebody won a competition or if they got something that you really wanted, I feel like maybe it's hard not to be upset about it or jealous because you really wanted something, but you kind of have to like look at it like you win some, you lose some, and that kind of like in life, there are tons and tons of competitions, and you're not always going to win them all, and you're not always going to lose them all, but you kind of have to learn how to deal with maybe like rejection or with losing, but that'll sort of come with time, because once you get rejected or lose something a lot of times in a row, you kind of get used to it. But it helps you grow as a person. It does.
Yeah.
So everything happens for a reason. It'll all turn out right in the long run.
Last question. So last question of today's episode is, how do I deal with
That's an interesting way to word a question, Megan.
Okay, so the last question of today's episode is, how do I deal with competition in school?
I could go off about competition in school, because I hate the fact that you always feel like you have to be competing with your classmates. And it's like really hard not to compare yourself to other people, because I mean, for me personally, I'm not very good at math. It's like I'll like last year when I was in math. I would sit in math class and I'd be sitting there and I would like see all these other kids around me fully understanding and like getting good grades and not even having to try, and then I would kind of like compare myself to them and I'd be like, well, like, why don't I understand? Like, am I dumb? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, what's going on?
Or like AP Bio, like we'd be sitting there and like all of a sudden some kids could go off on like the what's it called, the citric cycle, the Calvin cycle. It was something, and they knew about it as if they were already biologists, but
we're all learning.
it's rough.
But like in those situations when you're comparing yourself or you're feeling kind of upset, or maybe you're feeling like you're like an outsider because you don't fully understand what's going on, you gotta kind of think about how like you like literally, I think it's impossible for you to be the only one that doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And like 9 times out of 10, like if you have a question and like you're like scared to raise your hand because you're like, oh my gosh, like no one else has this question, like they all know what's going on and I don't, like
everyone's probably thinking
the exact
same
same thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then someone in the back corner is gonna be like, oh my gosh, like thank God they asked that question because I was too scared to. But then also that kind of like leads into like what happens when like you're doing like really well in school, or like you do like good on something, and then like the people around you like kind of start like digging, like trying to compete with you.
Yeah.
That happens kind of a lot in like honors and AP classes, I feel like, because everyone's like
everyone wants that top spot.
Yeah, like everyone's like so like smart, so many like intelligent kids, and like everyone like wants to be the best, and we're all such perfectionists.
I'm just thinking about it.
It's hard.
And it's like kind of dumb too, because like it's good that we're all like succeeding and stuff, because like that's the future. Like we're all going out there, like it shouldn't be a competition, and we should all be like cheering each other on, but that's not how it works sometimes, which is unfortunate, but how it be.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like that competition in school maybe does benefit us, and I mean I kind of like competition. I think it's kind of fun. So like if I see that someone's doing like really well in something, like sometimes instead of like trying to like compete with them directly, be like, oh my gosh, like I'll like ask them for help through it. So instead of like directly competing, we're kind of collaborating.
I think with the whole like collaborating thing too, like I know like asking for help is hard sometimes, but like in the long run, like you will get up to like where you want to be. You can always like use those like specific skills to work together and make an even like better product.
Yeah, because like it's never like black and white. It's never like I can either have this or I can have that. Like there are always those gray areas, and you can like
teamwork makes the dream work.
You don't have to compare yourself to other people. And like whether it's like sports, or if it's like freaking, if it's church, if it's ASB, if it's just college applications or life or anything, like you're you. And just because you lose something or you win something, it doesn't change that. It doesn't change your morals. It doesn't change what really matters. Competition, schmompetition, because you're you. Competition pro tip number 1. If you think you are or are going to lose a competition, leave.
Competition pro tip number 2. If you win a competition,
Dance
brag about
party. It. Competition pro tip number 3. If you beat your friend at something, laugh at them.
Competition pro tip number 4. If losing a competition has you down,
surround yourself with some positive people.
In all seriousness, if competition is stressing you out, don't let it. All you can do is all you can do.
We all deal with competition in our daily lives, in our home lives, in our school lives, and it can get rough, but it is what you make of it. So make the most of it. Yep.
Bye.
No. Thanks for watching.
I hope it was a great experience. I hope you learned a lot.
We know that everyone deals with competition almost every single day, so we hope that you can take something away from this video, maybe implement it into your life, maybe like,
we know you can apply it to anything because there's competition literally everywhere.
And it's it's not always about who wins. But it is.
And I won.
We're done.